Urban Explorers, what is the creepiest we're not alone experience you've had? My father does architectural salvage for a living, and I help him out from time to time. When he was touring Danvers State Hospital in Massachusetts, he was following 2 other salvagers in the foreman through the attics. Upon turning a corner, they all paused and stared. There, sitting in the middle of a shaft of light from a shattered skylight, in an otherwise empty attic, were 2 children's Easter baskets. It's probably the Easter Bunny. So I have a lot of interesting friends, one of which is a really nice guy who we'll call Jay. Now we aren't urban explorers, but we definitely had a we're not alone moment. Jay's parents are psychos who have their drug addict friends around their house all the time. He hates his family and spends nights with friends almost constantly. One night Jay was actually at his house and his parents' kid friend was high on some things and was getting violent, so Jay got the frick out of his house and went to our friend's house where he's been ever since. The problem was he had a pretty nice gaming laptop left at his house, so me and like 3 of our friends planned to go and get it. The problem was it was in what I would basically call a crack den where we were pretty sure the violent dude still was. We then gathered some light weapons including but not limited to a small hunting crossbow, a replica katana from Kill Bill, and a metal baseball bat. So we drive over to his house at about 3 am, weapons in hand, and we go in. We didn't see any cars, so we went for it. We had to crawl through a side window which was really loose. We made it in and didn't hear anything, so we went up the stairs and we got the laptop. We then attempt to head back down the stairs, but the moment we all make it out we hear footsteps coming down the hallway next to us, so we all jump back into the room. The next thing we know, somebody is pounding on the door to the room yelling at us to let them in, so being the rational teenagers we were, we jumped out of his window and hauled butt to the car. TLDR, me and some friends raided a crack den for a gaming laptop. Not me, but my little brother, 15-year-old. December 6 last year, he and his friends decided to go and explore this place called the Mills. The thing is, everyone knows the Mills are the place where a lot of crack dens are. I told my brother, our mom told my brother, a lot of friends told my brother. The Ashat decided to go anyways. In the evening while I was at a Christmas party, I got a call from him, panicking and crying that they were caught by junkies and possibly the people at Cookham. One of his friends got cut with a knife by some junkie dude and all the boys were beat up. Nothing too serious that would require medical attention, but bad enough to scare them shitless. I had my friend drive me there and pick up and deliver the boys home. Of course they all got the "you are a bunch of dumb idiots and I forbid you to leave your houses after sundown" talk. My brother had some bruises, but he was otherwise okay, just shaked and screamed at by me. Don't really know a lot of details, but I know the aftermath. Probably not what you're looking for, but I remember seeing a video of a guy exploring an abandoned hospital and there were most certainly squatters in it. They were following him around and you could catch glimpses of them through cracks and doorway and such. I swear to God, at one point in the video you can hear someone say, "Let's get him." I'll see if I can find it. This doesn't quite fit, but it sort of does. I walk my dog late at night when there's no one around. Well, one night BF is with me and we're walking and my dog starts growling at a yard we're walking by. No biggie because that's where one of her rivals lives and she always growls in that direction. But then we hear "Hello, hey there." The yard was dark like it usually is. Apparently the neighbor was sitting around in the dark there at the time. We said hello back, but hearing her first hello we both got so freaked out. Not an exploration. I live in a dorm and was hungry at 2 am and decided to cook something in the kitchen. The kitchen had this very large window without curtains so you can see if someone is outside. I saw an old man just standing there next to a trash bin outside, so I smiled at him. I forgot some ingredients, so I grabbed them in the fridge, which is on the other side of the kitchen. When I came back, the old man is not there anymore. I was terrified because I didn't hear any footsteps. I turned off the stove and went back to my room immediately. Why would he stood still silently in front of the kitchen in the first place? Heck man, I don't even want to cook at night anymore now. I was doing a shoot for a student short film in an abandoned vicarage. The vicar has died that week, and so one of the clergymen at the church were letting us use the building to film in. Things weren't right from the get-go. The vicar has only been dead a week, but this place looked like it had been abandoned for decades. Mail had piled up at the door and parts of the landing were starting to collapse into the lower floor. In one scene I had to take some tablets from the medicine cabinet and then look myself in the mirror all dramatic. We'd stocked the cabinet full of sugar tablets and fake medicine bottles so I could keep taking them. Later in the shoot I'd head downstairs and set the kettle going. We'd done this a few times and gone to shoot some other scenes at other parts of the house and churchyard. At the end of the shoot we were sat in the living room when suddenly some music started playing. Elvis Presley Can't Help Falling in Love. Crap, we turned the record off and started cleaning up. While we were in the living room someone had taken all the tablets from the cabinet and made us a coffee with the kettle I'd boiled earlier. Also someone had started reading the letters left at the front door. We legged it. I may not be an urban explorer but I do have a story I wanna share. When I was a kid, I was at my friend's house and we were playing video games. I was probably around 10 that time. But yay, we were hanging out and I realized it was dark and late, maybe close to 10 PM or 11 PM. So I decided to bike home cause my house wasn't too far from his, maybe 3-4 blocks. But as I went home, there was this long curve going downhill and my house would be there at the corner and there would be woods on the other side of the road. As I was cruising down the hill I heard something from the side, like something in the bushes, and could hear the trees moving. They're street lights too so it wasn't too dark. But all of a sudden there were so many deers that came out of the woods. Like that Jurassic Park movie where all the dinosaurs started running away. As I was cruising downhill I felt like everything was in slow motion. I suddenly stopped and was scared hoping the deers don't run me over. But none of them did. I was shocked at how many deer there was and at the same time amazed how I wasn't hurt. But I came to my sense and thought, why did that happen? As if they were getting chased by something big. Then again I heard something from the woods. Look over and saw nothing but the leaves on the trees cause it was still dark with the street lights. I was close to home at that time and just went home and told nobody cause it felt like I couldn't. But till this day I still don't know why I experienced that moment and how I was lucky not to get run over by a pack of running deers, but I know I definitely wasn't alone when I was starting at the woods. Kinda boring story but just wanted to share. Thanks. That's not boring at all. Imagine if they had hit you and you got hurt. You're now sitting in the road and whatever frightened them could potentially be near you or on its way. Definitely creepy. It was actually kind of funny. Me and one of my friends go to an abandoned psychiatric center. Over 7 stories in the main building, 60-70 rooms a floor, as well as 24 separate outbuildings, ranging from separation units to a pool, etc. This place is on state land that's patrolled by the state police and who are constantly arresting people that go explore. We were in the main building on the 6th floor on the backside of the building quite a bit away from the staircases. As we are taking pictures we hear slow movement. Can't explain it better. Not footsteps, just movement. And what sound like whispers coming from somewhere. Nothing that's identifiable, so my friend and I freeze and are trying to figure out where it was coming from. It was infrequent and low but it was moving. My friend and I think it must be the cops, so we start quietly working our way towards where the stairs are. It's not night but it's getting dark and there aren't a ton of windows. So we are trying to do this without flashlights while packing up cameras so we can run if we need to. We come around the corner and are face to face with the noise. 2 other people looking around the building. We almost crap ourselves. Haha, they were sneaking around because they thought we were the cops. Ended up being cool people. We walked around with them and smoked some weed, but for that 5 minutes all of us thought we were about to be caught by the cops. Not an urban setting, but when I was a kid we would explore the houses being built in our development when the builders were gone. We were walking around the downstairs of the newer house when we heard an enormous sneeze from the upstairs. We booked it out of there so fast and didn't stop running till we got to the closest friend's house. We were in an abandoned mental health ward and one of my friends, who was very high, said he heard something in the ceiling, so he used a broom to lift one of the squares and, screaming, hissing, chattering, fuck, raccoons. He came around the corner covered in scratches. A small mob of raccoons followed. We all ran and got out and then took him to urgent care to say I got jumped by raccoons and get his bites, scratches treated and a rabies shot. There is an abandoned youth centre in Kent, UK that has been there since 1917. It's just off of an estate block by some apartments, not very secluded, The place was pretty creepy as there was an open barn-like shed which had cut down ropes and nooses hung up all on the ceiling. We entered the building and didn't spend very long there. There was a main stage area and a big hall floor space with an upstairs room you could get to on a ladder. There used to be external access but the iron door was sealed shut like most of the doors here. We went up there and found a couch and thought we would chill there for a bit. We heard a loud bang and me being the bravest of the two poked my head round to see a man walking in fast paced. We slammed the door shut and pushed the couch up against it. He was banging on the door with some kind of metal clunky object yelling at us to come out. This went on for around 5 minutes but it felt like forever. We were terrified. The next thing you know we hear the item drop and him leave. I looked my cousin dead in the eyes and said he's going to try the other door. We sprinted out of there and hopped the fence as quickly as we could and never returned to the place or saw the man again. I have pictures of the Raggedy Ann looking doll but I'm not quite sure how to upload. I live with the Teton Mountains out my backyard. It's pretty black out at night. No street lights. Can see the stars very clearly. One night, boyfriend comes running to the living room and straight on through to the backyard deck, screaming for his mom and I to follow him. All three of us go out and look up to see what looks like a Chinese lantern on fire, but moving in far too straight of a line, bobbing up and down. To be one, you could see what looked like a glowing orb of flames, little tips of flames like whipping around inside it, and it was sort of meandering in a straight line across the mountain horizon. And it was well within our atmosphere, in front of the mountain range, just about a mile away. While all of us staring at it, jaws dropped and dogs running amok in the backyard. It gets to the southwest corner of the house where it is about to be out of sight from the roof, and it freezes position and just hovers there. Then, it rotates, still glowing, and all three of us felt in that moment like it noticed us. I immediately got extremely uncomfortable and desperately tried gathering my dogs inside. I felt like it was looking at us and it was definitely not from this planet. Then, it shot off into space. Straight up, faster than anything I've ever seen. This story makes me sound like I have a tinfoil hat on. I don't, but it still flabbergasts me to this day. Me and my ex decided to go have a look around the old Westroids mental asylum just before they tore down the last few remaining buildings. We headed up to the old clock tower and we were startled by the security guard who asked us to leave. On the way out we noticed that the doors to the old wards were still open, so we headed inside. Cloaked in complete darkness apart from a light right at the other, 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 a light. My ass clenched so tight I ripped a hole in my boxers. My workshop has a huge open space for us to do maintenance on certain types of vehicles. Many times in the evening night, I've seen shadowy figures walk across the catwalk. I've felt a cold hand on my shoulder and a voice whisper listen, very sharply in my ear. We have an automatic sensor water fountain in the break area. It turns on by itself sometimes. I can hear the water splattering. On one occasion, I heard it turn on. In my head I thought, oh haha, ghost. Very funny. Bet you can turn it off. The water turns off. Now I'm nervous and think to myself, if you're real, turn the water back on. The water turns on. By now, I'm very shaken and whisper, turn it off, and the water turned off. Maybe you just have psychic powers. I went to an old mental hospital that had been renovated most recently to be a retirement home. It had been shut down and looked like everyone just noped the frick out. The rooms were still decorated. Old files everywhere. Looked like you could still sit in the beauty parlor and get your hair done. It was like they closed the doors and no one ever came back. Except for those who explored or burglarized. We caught video of orbs and voices. I didn't get freaked out until we were standing at the nurse's station on the second floor and it sounded like the elevator was coming up, complete with the arrival ding. There hadn't been electricity to that place in years. There was literally a hole in the ceiling in the other end of the hallway. No way that freaking elevator was running. Creepy crap. I had a blast reading through all the old files and looking through all the rooms at all the personal effects left behind. I even brought a few pics left behind home with me. Thought the dearly departed might appreciate that. So this last summer we visited Germany for a study abroad. During the weekends we were allowed to travel. We visited this small town. On our way back to the hostel I was alone with a female friend from the group. I knew the way back so we were fine. It was relatively quiet and dark. They don't have the best lighting. So whilst walking we hear some noise coming from around the corner. It was a group of men holding something, maybe baseball bats. The girl got anxious. I insisted her to calm down. They kept walking behind us some 60 meters. We turned a corner and lost them. We kept walking and heard some noises coming from a bush behind a fence right next to us. She held my arm and said, "Do you want to run?" Everything seemed like out of a horror movie. So I turned to her and said, "Let's go." We kept running non-stop till we got to the hostel. For a moment we got lost and panicked but kept going until we found the hostel and went in. We were exploring an old school and just after we came up from the basement with only one entrance and went downhill to some rubbish, we heard a cough behind us. We ran as if a pack of wolves was chasing us. Luckily, there was a man-made hole in a fence that led us out of the property before anyone could catch us. Just a few minutes earlier and we would have been caught by whoever this man was. Something trivial like a cough can be incredibly upsetting. Haha, this is a good one. We had an awesome old abandoned hospital in St. Louis, torn down now, but its history went back to the Civil War. A buddy and I went and decided to explore this spot, and in the spirit of Brookhaven Hospital of the Silent Hill world, we of course went and explored it at night with some friends for ultimate creepiness. And it was quite the night. It was a decayed, dark world soaked in complete silence besides the city noises and the audible mirages your brain would create. We went up to the upper levels and I began scanning rooms down a hallway one after another, imagining the horrors each one might have seen in its long history, and peeking around a door frame halfway down the hall stopped me dead in my tracks. My stomach dropped through the floor. I saw two legs lying motionless inside the hospital room. I knew I was either looking at a dead body or a sleeping hobo, each just as likely in the city of St. Louis. I slowly rounded the corner with my flashlight to reveal the scene. What I saw caused me to laugh. I left the room and went back to my buddies to tell them to check out the room, not telling them what was in store. It was a pair of waders that somebody had set up for a joke. T was a well-played prank. There was an old state mental hospital in the woods that we'd take girls to scare the crap out of all the time. Security was on point though, so you had to time their rounds and there were only a couple spots to get in. On the opposite side of the parking lot there were hedges you could watch from and time your entry, so we'd wait there for a bit to get the feel for it. There were plenty of times we called it off and bailed without trying to get in. One time we made it in and were roaming the halls checking out old rooms in the cafeteria and crap when we started hearing sound from random areas. Ticking, shuffling, scraping, etc. Really faint. It sounded like animals crawling through vents. We wanted to find the source, so we left the room we were in and walked into a long hallway and could see really faint lights at the end of the hall. It looked like flashlights but there were no beams of light. Just circles of light a couple feet off the floor like kids holding M or something. Friend kinda whisper yelled hey and no response and no change. They just stayed there for a minute or so and faded away. We left and were like WTF. They tore the hospital down and built a neighborhood on the 100-acre or so property. No FN way I'd buy one of the houses there. They filmed One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest there. Walking past an abandoned factory, out for a run. Really needed to go to the bathroom and thought this would be a great place to take a pee. After taking the aforementioned, noticed some really nice graffiti artwork deeper inside this abandoned factory, so I decided to venture inside. The moment I headed for the front doors, my spidey senses started tingling, my body telling me this isn't a good idea, you know, just that feeling in your gut that tells you to stop. Anyways, I notice around front door there's lots of broken glass. Since this wasn't my first rodeo, I knew the glass was there as a warning to the people inside that somebody was approaching. I stood for maybe 4-5 seconds contemplating going inside when 3 burly guys stepped from around the door asking what the frick I thought I was doing. I explained I was there to see the artwork, as I couldn't think of any other excuses. They tried to put their hand on my shoulders and guide me inside with telling me there was better stuff deeper into the factory, stuff I would really like. By now my senses were on fire and I just wanted to nope the frick out of there. They were so persistent to the point I thought crap, they don't want me to leave. One then pointed to an abandoned room, something which looked like a scene from Saw, including an old office chair in the center of the room. I politely made my excuses and headed for the broken fence in which I entered, expecting these guys to back off, but that only encouraged them to come more into my personal space and escort me to the road outside, telling me numerous times I'm missing out. I still don't know what these guys were planning. Perhaps they were genuine, but dang, they gave off some pretty bad vibes to the point of wow, that was kinda messed up. All in all, 3/10 would do again. When I did security, one of my shittier gigs was during the entirety of summer from 9 PM to 3 AM. My job was to drive to the local outdoor swimming pool, make sure the doors gates are locked up, then sit in my truck and do whatever I want and just make sure no one hops the fence to swim or vandalizes anything. Most nights I wouldn't see a single person. Sometimes an odd car or two would drive in the parking lot and friends would hang out, maybe sit by the benches or play in the playground, and I would just sit in my truck and watch Netflix. Well, one night I was sitting in my truck and watching some random show, but I would hear this whispering. At first I thought it was the show, but during quiet scenes I would still hear it, so I paused it and looked around and saw nothing. So I went back to watching it, and I still 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 watching it, and these are my stories my dad told me, but my dad is a realtor and will sometimes have to appraise houses that were foreclosed on. The tenant will sometimes as a frick you to the bank, either trash the house or leave their belongings behind. So the first story was when he walked into the house. It smelt absolutely rancid. While investigating the source of the smell, he opened the door to the garage and was face to face with a person. He felt for the light switch, couldn't find one, and was too petrified to move. His eyes finally adjusted to the darkness to make out the shape of a freaking mannequin that someone had propped up in front of the door to scare the crap out of. The smell ended up being a dead snake in the sink, which is also pretty fricked. This one is pretty creepy. He was walking another foreclosure property that someone had put tons of mirrors in the house. Additionally, they had demolished the old stairs and replaced them with a spiral staircase. He told me this had something to do with ghosts or demons unable to enter spiral stairs, and he said overall it was just very unsettling. He went outside to check out the shed, and when he opened the shed he was hit with the smell of rotting animal. There was a shrine of small dead animals, arranged in a circle, with the head of a decaying dog skull in the middle. There were weird shapes drawn along the walls, and he called 911 because of how ghastly the scene was. He doesn't like talking about that one. LOL. Happens all the time in DayZ. You'd walk around as a group and then you realize that there is one extra person randomly in your group who has infiltrated without you realizing. Reminds me of the Goat Man creepypasta all the time. Not really urban, but I lived in the country and me and my best friend would drive around, park and just go sightseeing in the dark. One such occasion it was pitch black BC, country, and we hopped a fence to this open area with a little shed in the middle. We were walking and all of a sudden my friend grabbed me by my arm and told me there was a man standing on the shed watching us. Now I'm 4'11", not active at all, and he's the same except he's got about a foot on me. Well, when we ran back to that fence you could have sworn we were jumping them hoes all our lives. Explored an old makeup factory with cages in the basements for animal testing. Place was beaten to heck, half of it fallen apart. No access to the upstairs due to every staircase either being non-existent due to water damage or a flat-out suicide mission. As my buddy and I find another dead end, can't get upstairs, we hear someone running above us, towards the dead end. My buddy flipped his knife out ready for some path to just hurl themselves down what basically was a straight drop to the first floor, but they suddenly just stopped. Got the heck out of there. Another time at an old hospital I was checking out with a different friend was all sorts of crazy with hidden rooms and a patio on the roof that can only be accessed by an elevator, which of course was empty, or by going up to like a tower, crawling out the tower window and across the roof. Well, anyway, I heard somebody in a bedroom, jumping on the mattress, knocking things over, making a ruckus. and saw like a humanoid shadow kinda on the wall and walk away out of my view. And that's when I was like, oh, it's my friend, and walked in. No one was there. Went to an abandoned theater in New Orleans. Walked up to a door to look through a crack in it. Saw something move out of the corner of my eye. Homeless guy was crouching less than 3 feet from me, staring at me. I panicked, nodded and said sup, and booked it out of there. He followed me a good 100 feet and I thought I was dead. He left and I didn't see him again. Afterwards I saw someone with no bottom clothing on laying on a bench. 10/10 would visit NOLA again. I ran around in college with a group that explored abandoned buildings, steam tunnels, and other out of the way places. I have 2 stories for you. I'll post the first one now, the other later. TLDR. At the bottom, we were in a steam tunnel underneath the University of Oregon. For the past 2.5 hours, we had been making our way slowly from where we entered to an exit that was just a little exposed. We had one guy in the group who we nicknamed Sneakers because he was good at getting around quietly. He was bold as brass, seemingly unafraid of anything. He generally ran point to make sure we didn't run into any surprises. Sneakers had been gone for about a half hour when we saw him reappear just ahead of us with a terrified expression on his face. He quickly pulled the group leader aside and carried on a whispered conversation with him. Face white as a sheet. The group leader suddenly started laughing and Sneakers hit him hard in the arm and shushed him. The leader glared at him but quickly turned to the rest of us and told us to wait. Then they both disappeared down the tunnel. The rest of us, of course, had all kinds of guesses as to what was going on, but nobody guessed that the 2 of them would come running back to us, white as a sheet. Sneakers was actually hyperventilating, and the group leader was pale and sweating. We went back the way we came, but there weren't any explanations given until we were about an hour down the tunnel. Apparently there was a weird sound coming from behind a bunch of pipes. Sneakers went to investigate and there was a guy on some sort of substance, slowly rocking back and forth and crooning at nothing, while waving a gun around. When the 2 of them went back to see that Sneakers wasn't making it all up, the guy had moved toward us and was waiting in the middle of the tunnel. TLDR. Ran into a drug-addled guy with a gun in some steam tunnels. When I went to the IT school we went on a 3-day trip together as one class, and on the 2nd day we went to the woods where our teacher set up some radio stations with Morse code and we had to find them. It was a cool thing and made fun, which we didn't thought first. So we were in the woods on a Thursday and searched for the stations. We walked on a small way and then suddenly a guy in full army clothes, I live in Germany BTW, a gas mask and a freaking machine gun. All guns are forbidden in Germany. Stands there on the way and looks deadly in our eyes and grabs his weapon. We backed the frick slowly out there. He just stood there, ready to shoot at us. There were no more PPL in the woods. IDK what the heck he did there. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.